Have you ever been sewing when suddenly your fabric gets pushed down into the throat plate and gets stuck? Or had a needle break while you're sewing? Or seen your fabric get all bunched up behind the presser foot? So there are a few reasons this can happen, but one of the most common is simply using the wrong needle. The good news is there's a super easy fix. So sewing machine needles come in a variety of types and sizes, and you just need a little bit of information to choose the right one. In this video, Haley and I will show you how to understand sewing machine needles so you can match the right needle to the fabric you'll be using for your project. But before we get to that, if you're someone who's interested in making your own clothing with more intention and joy, you're definitely in the right place here at Seamwork. So hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can follow along with us and never miss one of our weekly videos. When you look at a packet of needles, you might see some terms like universal needles, ballpoint, stretch, jeans, denim, quilting. Haley's here to help me show you how to interpret this information. We're going to talk about the two most important characteristics of needles, the kind and the size. Then we're going to show you how to match these to your fabric so you always have the right needle and can avoid most of the problems that I mentioned. Okay, so Haley, what should people look for when they're looking at a package of needles?
So there's two main things that you're going to want to look for when you're looking at a package of needles. You're going to want to look for the type of needle. This is going to be like a word, like universal, knit, jeans, that kind of thing. Tells you what the needle is used for. And then you're going to want to look for the size, and that is just the size of the needle, and it corresponds to the weight of the fabric. And that's just going to be a whole bunch of numbers with some slashes in there. That guy is your size.
Okay, so this one says universal on it. So tell us what that means.
So universal is a really good kind of multi-purpose needle. You're going to be able to use it on most wovens, some knits. It's what I have in my sewing stash that I keep in a bunch of different sizes because it's really good and multi-purpose. Most ideal for things that are in the medium weight range. And then it comes
like this here?
Yes, this would be exactly the type of thing I would use a universal needle for. This is a cotton linen blend, I believe. It's kind of in the medium weight family. So this would be a great pairing for a universal needle.
And then what about this one? This one says knit.
Yes, so knit needles sometimes are also labeled as ballpoint needles. What differentiates this needle from a universal needle is that it has a kind of ball, rounded shaped tip. And that helps the needle to not cut through the fibers quite as much. It pushes them to the side instead, so then you don't get runs in your knit fabric. If you've ever had a run in your stockings, that's what can happen with knits if you use a needle that's too sharp. And sometimes universal needles can do this to your knit. So switching to a knit or a ballpoint needle is really ideal.
Okay, so something like this, knit, it's got a stretch to it. But this one says stretch. So what's the difference between a stretch needle and a knit needle?
So a knit needle is going to be able to handle something with a little bit of lycra or spandex, any kind of elastane fiber in it. But if you are doing something that has, like this one here, this is an athletic knit, it's super stretchy, there is a ton of elastane in here. That's when you're going to want to switch to a stretch needle. And the difference between a knit and a stretch needle is that a stretch needle is a little bit sharper to kind of pierce through that elastane, which is a little bit tougher than cotton fibers, say.
Okay, so like a knit needle you would use on most knit fabrics, but if you're using something with a lot of stretch, a lot of elastic in it, you want to go for the stretch needle.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and this next one says Microtex.
Microtex. This is one of my favorite needles. So kind of like its name implies, it has a super micro, sharp point to it. And for that reason, it's really great for lightweight, fine fabrics so that you're not putting too large of a hole in your fabric. So this fabric that we have here, this is a rayon of some sort, super lightweight. If you're using a needle that's too large, it's really going to drag the fabric down into that throat plate. It's super annoying. So using a really sharp Microtex needle is going to be kind of your best friend for a fabric like this.
So if you're sewing something with a really light fabric and you find that the machine is eating it, it's really pulling it down into the throat plate, you might need to switch to a Microtex, you're saying?
Yes, definitely. Either that or you have a dull needle. That can happen with a little bit heavier weight fabrics. Sometimes if you're using a lightweight fabric and you know that that's a fresh needle, that it's nice and sharp, go ahead and switch on over to a Microtex.
All right. And then this one seems a little bit more obvious. It says jeans on it.
Jeans, yes. This is really great for, as the name implies, denim.
Yeah.
So you could use it for that, but you could also branch out from there. You could use it for canvases, for duck. It's a nice sturdy needle, and it's going to be able to cut through those really sturdy fabrics. So don't feel like just married to denim with a jeans needle. If you're sewing anything that's pretty heavyweight, you might be able to get away with a jeans needle.
Okay. And then this last one we have here, it says leather. So that's also kind of says what it does.
Yeah, definitely. But again, you don't have to use this for just leather. This type of needle, it has more of a, I believe the tip is a little bit more blade-like, a little bit more tapered. It's going to do a really good job of piercing through anything that's kind of a solid surface. So leather, vinyl. If you were sewing with anything like that, like outdoor kind of vinyl stuff you would put on a picnic table, this is the kind of needle that you're going to want to use. And it's really going to be tough and just pierce through this solid kind of surface a lot better.
Okay.
Even if I was sewing with something like really non-traditional, like plastic or something like that, I would use a leather needle.
Okay, great.
So that is a little bit about needle types. Let's talk about needle sizes. So Sari, can you tell me a little bit about needle sizes and why is there 2 different numbers here?
All right, so when you get a package of needles, you'll see the 2 different numbers, usually kind of towards the bottom, and there'll probably be a slash between them. So for example, this one says 80/12 on the bottom, and the first number is the European size and the second number is the imperial size.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do you choose which size to use?
So you want to match your needle to your fabric. So when you're using a heavier fabric, you want a bigger needle.
Okay.
And when you're using a lighter fabric, you want a smaller needle. And so that's kind of the baseline. When we're looking at a medium fabric, like this one here, you want to go with a medium-sized needle. So a medium-sized needle would be an 80/12 or something like a 90/14. So when you're sewing with something like poplin or shirting or most linens, which are kind of a medium weight, nice and sturdy, but not too heavy, you'd go with one of those needles. So it's kind of like a medium needle. And then if you're sewing with something that's lightweight, so we talked about this rayon where you might want to use a Microtex before. So if you're sewing with something lightweight like a chiffon or georgette or voile or like a really thin tissue knit, like a really, really thin one, then you want to use a lightweight needle. And that would be anything from maybe a 60/8 to a 75/11. So in between that kind of 60 to 75 range would be a lightweight needle. And then when you're sewing with something heavy, so for example, a denim or maybe a coating or a corduroy, something like that, something that's very heavy, you need a bigger needle to get through that thicker, heavier fabric. So for that, you might use a 116 or a 110/18. And if you can't remember all these numbers, that's fine. We actually have a downloadable needle chart. We're going to link it below. And that's something that's really helpful to just hang up in your sewing room that you can just reference whenever you need to decide on a needle for the particular fabric that you're sewing.
I think that it's always really helpful to think of it as 80 and 90. Those are kinds of my middle ground. And then I can kind of move up from there or down from there as needed.
Yeah, that way you only have to remember a couple sizes. You don't have to remember the whole range. You just remember kind of what's the most common one that I use. And then do I need something heavier? Do I need something lighter?
Yeah, and at least the numbers are fairly intuitive in that the smaller numbers means lighter weight and the bigger numbers means heavier weight.
And I think the other thing we should mention is we talked about all these different types of needles And for some of them, like if you're sewing with denim, so this is a jeans needle, you're probably not going to be able to find a lightweight or a small, thin size needle in a jeans or denim type, right? Because when you're sewing with jeans or denim, you need a heavier weight needle. So there's a little bit of overlap there between the type of needle and the size of needle, but you still have a choice. So you still can choose, is this a heavier denim? Do I need a really thick needle that's on the upper end of that spectrum? Or if it's a lighter denim, maybe I need something that's on the lower end of that denim spectrum.
Yes, and some needles are going to come in a wider range of sizes, like a universal needle will come in a big variety of different sizes, where like Sari mentioned, the denim needle will probably just come in a handful because denim, you know, they're all relatively heavyweight.
Yeah, you can also often find with the universal needles, if you go to a sewing store or a craft store, you can often find a packet of universal needles that comes in quite a range of sizes. So this one is just 80-12, but sometimes you can find a bigger packet that has everything from maybe like a 65 all the way up to 90-95. It depends on the packet of needles, but that way you have a whole variety of universal needles. So if you're just starting out, that's a really good place to start.
Definitely.
That's it for us today. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to let us know by hitting the like button. And be sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications if you haven't already, so you get all our weekly videos. We also have a free downloadable guide that has a handy chart that'll help you match the right needle to your fabric. You can find it at the link in the description below. We also have a brand new course available at seamwork.com called Learn to Sew Clothing for Absolute Beginners. In this course, Haley and I walk you through each of the component skills you need to make your own clothing, from using your machine, sewing seams of all kinds, to sleeves and facings. It's perfect for anyone who's brand new to sewing or for anyone who's taken a break from sewing and needs a refresher. You can also find it in the description below. And if you like to read articles in addition to watching videos, head over to seamwork.com where we post articles to go with our episodes every week. We also have a podcast called Seamwork Radio where we talk every week about practical ideas for building a creative process so you can sew with more intention and joy, because that's what we're all about. Just search for Seamwork Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can also find us on social media at Seamwork. And if you'd like to join Seamwork and become part of our private community, plus get access to hundreds of sewing patterns and dozens of sew-along classes, YouTube subscribers get a 50% off lifetime discount when you join at seamwork.com/go/YouTube50. And we'll put that link below too. So wherever you choose to join us, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And remember to have fun and be yourself, because that's what sewing's all about.